Good afternoon, good evening. This is Juan Reed and Solomon Cade with the Community REIT. The Community REIT is a REIT, real estate investment trust group, but we have a podcast uh, for the growth of Black people. And what do I mean by that? One of the things we were saying before we were coming on, the gentleman that is our special guest, Mr. Obi, was discussing, uh, ironically, the cultural differences on the continent of Africa. And for some reason, I was surprised about that. I shouldn't have been because obviously different cultures think different. They're associated to different things. And unfortunately, in the United States, the African diaspora has so many different mindsets and perspectives. And these mindsets and perspectives cause us to separate from one another. Okay? The common goal in every scenario is fiduciary or financial characteristics. Everyone needs money. It's been the unfortunate issue all around the world that the Black or Afrocentric community has not had access to the things needed to grow their money and to grow their ability to pass on wealth. And it's our goal in this, not only our REIT but in the podcast, to develop it educationally, psychologically, and to remove these fake spiritual barriers so that people are allowed to freely come together. So our first guest is the Mr. Obi. Uh, Mr. Obi, can you tell our audience about, first of all, who you are and what you do, and then we'll get into some questions.
Thank you for the invite to the Community Read podcast, and this is going to be my first episode with you all, and I'm highly honored to be here. I am Mr. Obi, and I'm commonly referred to as Apostle Obi. I am the global director for the first Pan-African Farmers Cooperative in the continent, and the chief executive officer for Middle Passage Atlantic Africa Company, MPAC. This company, it's an investment facilitation company for the East African region and the Southern African region. Pretty much, we facilitate African diaspora investment in real estate, in leisure, hospitality, and transportation, name it, all the critical infrastructure investments, including mining and also mineral transaction. We are involved in facilitating that. And we work with competent law firms out of Nairobi that also help with facilitating these projects, and community leaders across East Africa. So that's what we do. And I am the global director for the agricultural development part of it, and the chief executive officer for the consultation firm, which is Impact as well.
Okay, okay. So if I was a firm that was interested in doing either investment or some type of development there, you would be able to expedite a relationship that would help me get my permitting, put me in a beneficial situation where I can negotiate land, uh, situate me where I can get materials, uh, make the appropriate introductions for development. Correct?
Correct. Actually, yes. That's one of the strong suit of the things we do. And currently, we are working with some African diasporans who have already begun doing such investments. As early as last week, one of them just flew back to New York to purchase land for construction and also for commercial agriculture. And it's it's the law firm that we work with, Ngeso Law Firm out of Nairobi, that will be helping with that. So yes, we can facilitate land acquisition, permit acquisition, and all the necessary bureaucratic red tapes that exist within those countries. We should be able to sail through them without a problem.
I'll say this for the audience. What Mr. Obi is discussing is actually how everything should work. I told you guys when we started the REIT that there should always be a middleman when you're doing anything, right? And the middleman has to have the financial and, well, essentially the financial leverage in order to ensure that whatever opportunity is expedited correctly and legally. And what Mr. Obi is saying is absolutely true. Let me get a law firm because law firms speak law to other law firms. Is that correct, Obi? So
Correct.
if my lawyer over here or the REITs lawyer finds issue with the deal, and then they mitigate it legally. You guys will understand this based on the contract that I wrote for you guys. You know, I had to, people were rushing with the contract, but I had to make certain the contract separated me from you from us from the accounting firm, us from the company. We can manage the company, but we had to hire officers in order to run the to run the operations within the organization. And so that there has to be always a barrier between money and rules. So Obi is absolutely correct in that. Go ahead, Solomon. Solomon's going to be asking the questions today. I'm just going to interject as we flow. Okay?
Yep, yep.
Everybody relax. This is a relaxed environment, but I guarantee you're going to love what Mr. Obi has to say and how he elaborates because I was, and I'm part of the impress.
I mean, first things first, Mr. Obi, I want to thank you for joining us. And I also do want to let the audience know that me and you, we've met prior to even the podcast being started. I've gotten so much information from you, and I want to let the people know that there's so much information coming from this wise man. It's gonna be a lot of information, so just we're gonna keep it conversational and then go from there. But while you and Mr. Reed were talking, I'm thinking, how did you come up with the concept? What brought you to the? How did you get that calling? Like, hey, I need to do something for the African community. I need to bring people together. I need to bring my people together and take them back to the continent to do something.
Yes, thank you. That's a very important question. Given the fact that the world is changing and we have a situation now whereby there is a great emergence of the global South economy. And the global South economy, um, it's hinged on the fact that Africa is at the center of it in terms of the uh, the greatest potentials or greatest Africa possesses. I mean to say, the largest percentage of global human and natural resources currently, and for time immemorial, for that matter. And one of the things that are happening in the continent that nobody's talking about it as well. There is um, there is an initiative in the continent that out of the 54 countries in the continent, I think if I'm not mistaken, 24 or 34 have ratified that agreement. That is the AFTAC, African Continental Free Trade area, some similar to what we have in America, NAFTA or USA, Mexico, Canada, that our current president kind of tore it up and went haywire with the tariffs. That is the African Continental Free Trade Area. It's the free movement of goods and services across the continent of 1.5 billion people. And when this come into effect, which is already began to, it's going to create the largest free trade area in the world.
I
So,
get
with that said, the reason why I came up with this concept, I wanted to go in as well, because when I was watching the African Union, the head of states, as soon as this was on the table, there was a mad rush of Asians, Arabs, Europeans rushing into the continent and investing in critical infrastructure from real estate to transportation to telecommunications because that will give them an opportunity wherever you set up in the continent, say you set up in Kenya or you set up in Uganda, you have access to the entire continental market.
so
Correct.
so Obi, let me ask you a question. What are some of the vital aspects at this time that makes Africa a rich investment?
I didn't hear the question. What did you say?
What are some of the vital aspects of this time that Africa makes Africa such a rich investment? I'm going to stop on that because I think you've already answered that. I think in your question you've already answered that. So I'm going to move on to the second question. What are some of the major areas of investment Africa would need investment in?
Currently, because of the emerging economies in the continent, infrastructure, critical infrastructure, is at the center of it all. And critical infrastructure can mostly real estate, of course, real estate that is also have multiple applications. So when you are talking about uh, hospitality, like you're building a hospitality project, for example, you want to build a resort by Lake Victoria. That resort should be it should have multiple or dual uses. So you have the resort, you have the hotels, you have the leisure, the bars and stuff, but you want to put in something that makes it even more important, and that will be a hospital. Like you build a resort and you put a hospital within the resort.
But
That create
let me interject something. Let me interject something. When you're doing a construction project, specifically when you call it, let's call it a greenfield project. Okay, let's call it a greenfield project. What happens is this: the type of hotels you would need initially, you would need two types of hotels. Is that correct? You'll need the regular hotel that construction workers can stay in, and then you'll also need the type of resorts that the business people can be separate, or the executives can be separate from the other people. In my experience, and I've been involved in several greenfield projects, obviously, like you stated, not as big as the one in that's going to be this continent of Africa, but you always have two types. So let's give an example: Hampton Inn versus an Amman property, right? Because when you're doing infrastructure, you got dirty roads, you got to keep the dirt down, you got so the construction project is separate. So I think the first part of that, that greenfield project and infrastructure, what would that be?
the first part of that. First of all, is gonna be in terms of access. And as you said, you rightly said, you have to build such a project, you will have to first get accommodation for the people, the workers. You get accommodation for the workers. But in that case, in Africa, it's not that very far fetched or difficult to get accommodation for workers because it's the regulations are not as much as if you were trying to do that in the United States. So, say for example, you want to build a green project, you want to build a resort by Lake Victoria. The government is not going to regulate the investor or the building company how to house their employees or how to hotel their employees as compared to the United States. Doesn't matter where remote you are doing. For example, we have farms, right? We set up a huge farm in a region where it's far away from town. We build the houses for them on the farms for the farmhands to stay in those houses with no permits, and the government don't interfere.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
so
there's no
that should not be
regulation.
an issue. Yeah, but
Okay,
the point that I was trying to make, with critical infrastructure, so the theme park or the leisure park or the resort itself, yes, is infrastructure, but to make that infrastructure critical is by creating space where you have already competent and qualified medical professionals in the continent who don't have jobs, who are looking to come to Houston or go to London to work. You keep them in the continent to work in that, to open clinics or private hospitals in that resort. Now you create a situation where people are going to be coming into the resort, not just for the leisure, but also for medical tourism, which is becoming a big thing in East Africa right now because of the Indians who are opening those type of establishments.
So, Mr. Ray, I think I'm gonna get in because this is a lot of a whole lot of development stuff. Like talking development standpoints in Africa and develop. I know Mr. Ray got excited because they're talking about developer stuff, but I've heard so much information, and I do want to find out from Mr. Obi, if all of these things are going on in Africa, how are Africans participating? The people in the continent of Africa, are they interested in being a part of these things? Is it a hard time for you to even preach this type of message to them?
Yes. I will start with this. African diasporans, that includes continental Africans who are immigrants in the West, and our cousins who are African Americans or Afro Caribbeans or Afro Latinos, but especially African diaspora in North America. We are the single group of black folk anywhere in the world that have access to minimal capital comparable. For example, you know, access to minimal capital in North America for African diasporans is much more greater than continental Africans within the continent. So these projects that I launched in East Africa, overwhelmingly, the continental Africans in East Africa, they are excited, they want to join these projects, but they don't have access to capital as compared to African diaspora, especially in North America. So that now actually that actually locks them out. That is why the Chinese and the Arabs and the Europeans have advantage in Africa because they are coming with access to capital.
Yeah.
So the few 0.5% of Africans who have capital there, they are also doing such projects. Like if you go to Nairobi, you'll meet huge estates that have been built in Nigeria, huge estates. That is not even up to 1% of the population. And those people, I mean, they got money, but we don't know how they get their money because the banks in Africa will finance a project, even like what the community REIT is trying to do. But you have to come in with some minimal capital. For instance, why do I choose Nairobi? I chose Nairobi because Nairobi is emerging as the continental African banking headquarters, no more Johannesburg. So, which means all of the GCC countries like Dubai, United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, even Israel, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, they have bank branches there. Bank of India, they are there. Bank of China. So these are banks that can finance projects, huge projects, but the Africans don't have access to minimal capital. We as African diasporans, we have access to minimal capital, and the government now is working with firms like mine, Impact, to facilitate the entrance of African diaspora with minimal capital. Then we can take advantage on those capital markets that already exist in the continent. So that is how the whole thing plays out. So the Africans are interested, but most Africans don't have access to capital,
Right.
to
Got
minimal
you.
investment capital. Yes.
Got you.
How do you identify? I mean, any project that I've worked on in my life, I don't care if it's in a different state. You have to identify somebody that's local. How would someone like us identify someone local? Not just a bureaucrat, but someone like you said that's a professional in Africa that we could work with.
Oh yes, that is the one thing that Africa have in abundance, even with a situation where these Indians and Arabs and Chinese are coming in. It's human resources, human capital. Africa has, I think, even a larger pool of human capital than even African diasporans in terms of educated people and people who know what they are doing. But as I mentioned, their problem is access to capital.
Yeah.
So you can find any type of architect or developer or name it a banker or somebody who knows the game, but that access to capital. So now these people mostly end up working with Chinese and Indians and Asians.
Yeah.
But their first priority will be African diaspora if an African diaspora shows up.
Yeah.
That is why we establish ourselves there in order to bring this information to the African diaspora, especially those of us in North America who have access to minimal capital, to come in and collaborate because it's all about collaboration.
So I have
All
another
about collaboration with the local population,
so I
as
have
we've
another
said. For
question for you.
example, I explained to you the last time, building a resort and working with the local community and getting everybody involved, even those of them who don't have access to minimal capital, but they have access to resources like land.
Yeah. So
Now you
let
can
me
collaborate and work with them.
hold on a second. Let me ask this question because I think it's paramount to. I mean, you know it is to what we do. How is the bureaucratic climate in Africa right
The bureaucratic climate.
now? Yes.
Now, the bureaucratic climate depends country by country. It's country by country. But now, with the various regions that are formed in Africa, you have the CEMAC region, that's Central Africa. You have the EAC, the EC region, which is East Africa. You have the SADC, which is Southern Africa. You have the Maghreb, the North Africa, and also, about, yeah, so you North, East, West, Central, and South. So these regions are very different. Very different in the sense that some regions are more integrated. For example, East Africa is the most integrated region of the continent, which means the bureaucracy, the governmental bureaucracy in the entire East Africa is similar as compared to West Africa, where Ghana has a completely different bureaucracy with Cote d'Ivoire because Cote d'Ivoire is French. It's French speaking.
Yeah.
And Nigeria have a different situation with Togo or Benin, even though they are all in ECOWAS, which is West African region. But if you go in the East African region, it's a good region to build a foundation and navigate the bureaucracy there because the bureaucracy applies to all those countries: Kenya, Tanzania, Rwanda,
Right.
Uganda, all those countries there. And in terms of the bureaucracy there, it depends on the type of law firm that is going to be assisting you to go through. Because in Africa right now, one of the things that Impact discourages is handshake business. You can't do handshake. It gotta go through a competent law firm that will help you facilitate it.
So
For instance, I will give a side an example.
is it
I
better?
have a commodity exportation license out of Kenya
Is it better
and
to use
coffee,
an
right?
international?
And normally it would take maybe 2 or 3 years before you acquire that license. But because of a competent law firm,
Let me finish the question. I have questions within the question.
yeah, so
I'm not
it
asking
really
the question.
depends on
Let me
the
finish the question. Let me finish the
I got you,
question.
Mr. Reed. I think your mic is coming in low because I'm
yeah.
also having a hard time hearing you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I
Yes.
can hear you now.
Yep. I think you had
So
a question, a follow up question.
is it best to have an international law firm open when you're going? I mean, you know what I mean by international. There's some of these firms out of Washington where y'all live that I work with that I can take anywhere because they're recognized. They have offices in Britain, Tokyo, all these places. Is it better to have an international law firm that covers the whole thing, or have a law firm in the United States connected to one of your law firms in Africa, in your opinion?
It will be necessary to have an international law firm out of the United States if it's an American investment group, but also it will be advisable to retain a local law firm there also because they do have international law firms as well. An international law firm there as well on the ground because those international law firms that are on the ground that are native to the country, they have access to they have easy access navigating the bureaucracies of that country as compared to a foreign international law firm coming in there. Because a foreign international law firm coming in there, if at all they have a branch there in Africa, that covers those countries, then it will make sense because they will have local advocates or counsels or barristers that are working in their office out of Nairobi who understand the bureaucracy of that country. So just parachuting an American law firm that don't have experience in the continent, I think is going to be mal-informed. But that American law firm can work in collaboration with the international law firm in Nairobi. Case in point, I do have an accounting company out of Nairobi, but that accounting company out of Nairobi, they handle the accounting for American companies like Dole, Texaco in Africa, and they even handle some accounting for Deloitte and Touche out of Africa. But
Right.
Deloitte and Touche is actually an American company,
Yeah.
so you have those type of firms there as well that can handle internationally, but they have to have localize knowledge and know how to
Got it.
integrate what you're trying to do from the diaspora into the system of that country.
That's good information. Go ahead, Tom.
That's good information. I'm just sitting here soaking it up. Um, us also being African, I think one of the issues that majority of Africans have ran into is the fact that when you like me being an individual, not a company, going back home to do something, it seems as though the African people there they don't take you serious. Why do you have any insights of why that is? Because it seems as though a foreign company can show up, for instance, the Chinese people can show up, and they can pretty much do business and be successful and 100% success rate. But somebody that comes from the continent is pretty hard for you to even get deals.
Yes. Well, I'm going to answer this with an advice. In order for you as a continental African coming from the diaspora to invest in the continent, what you should be looking at is what Mr. Reed opened this podcast with. We all need money. We are not here to go back to the villages where our parents were born, right?
I'm
We are
sorry.
looking we are looking for a climate, a business climate, a dynamic business climate. We are looking for transparency, honesty, and we are looking to do things the right way.
That's right.
For instance, you might be from Cameroon and you want to invest, say, in commercial agriculture as an individual. It may be more difficult for you, but it may be to invest in Cameroon than if you go as a corporation, as a registered company in Ghana. Then hire a Ghanaian law firm to facilitate the permitting process and the land acquisition process. But you can't do that in Cameroon because you are a local to them,
Yep.
and not that they won't take you serious, but you might be going there because you are familiar with the territory and you want to run business like a mom and pop store by yourself. Now,
That is a good answer.
you can be a Cameroonian in Houston and you want to, the country is very difficult. Yes, we all know certain countries in Africa are very difficult. But if you have a corporation or a community REIT or about an investment company out of America, it does not matter at that point if you're a Cameroonian because it's a corporation that is going to invest, and that corporation will hire a competent law firm in Cameroon that is going to
Exactly
facilitate
right.
the process. Case in point,
Exactly right.
I took, there's a group out of Michigan. They are all African Americans. They have Invest Africa. It's another group. They are about to build a resort. They have already secured the land in a place in Cameroon called Limbe.
Okay.
Nice.
Now they are looking at building a resort. I was the one who took them and have a consultation meeting in Washington D.C. with the Cameroon ambassador and the commercial attaché for trade in Washington. We had a 1 hour meeting at the embassy, and now they are moving forward with a $500 million project. That is basically what they are talking about, the $500 million project to build a resort in the coast in Limbe.
I think
That's
I think I think one of the points that you made that is a very good point is that there's steps to this. Okay. So when you say entry level funding, I know exactly what you're talking about. You're talking about conceptual design that if you're building a resort of what you're talking, let's say $500 million, 8% of that, right, is money they have to have. What you're saying is your people don't have that. They're capable of designing it. They're capable of the development. They're capable of doing the schematics. They're capable of doing all this stuff. But they may not have a front shop. They may not have the. Here's another thing. This is why it's important and why I need Solomon to hear this. When you had a conversation with a flag, okay, and you know what a flag. All of you know what a flag is. The company that says I will operate the development that the community REIT builds. Okay, we will be the name on the store. It's hard to get that too, Obi. It's hard to get a relationship with a corporate company that would say, I'll come over there and I will operate your hotel, Juan. I'm a Marriott, I'm a Hilton, I'm one of these groups. And so we had an entire discussion 2 weeks ago about environmental relationships. And that's what you're talking about, Obi. You're talking about people that have the knowledge. And what's ironic is Solomon talks about this all the time. We got all the education, all the degrees, Mr. Reed. And I tell him, but you don't have the environmental knowledge. The people around you, you can that makes a company. A company isn't just a group of people. A company is a form, mechanism, or vehicle that can go anywhere and say we can set up shop, and this is how we operate. We understand the bureaucracy, we understand the permitting, we understand the design, and we have international relationships that will allow us to operate anywhere. And so I hear exactly what you're saying. Uh, just great information. So I'm just Solomon's right. I'm excited. I love deep dive. So keep going.
Yep.
Keep going.
Yep. Now, I
I,
knew it'd be a good.
I have inside that when you ask your next deep dive question, I ask you something. When you say, and you and I both know there are different types. When you say infrastructure, are you talking just water pipe? Are you talking about major sewer projects? Are you talking about wastewater? I mean, when you say infrastructure, are you just talking about building real roads? What do you mean? And I'm asking for a reason because I might have somebody I can introduce you to that's interested in that. Go ahead, Obi.
Yes, I'm talking about critical infrastructure. Critical infrastructure are stuff that has to deal with healthcare, food security, housing, roads. Because right now it's possible to build roads in Africa and put a toll booth on it, and put a toll booth and own a road that you go into partnership with the government. You build a road and you are operating a toll booth and expressway. It's possible to build community flats, which community flats like projects like what we have in America. That is a community, it's a private governmental partnership that is highly needed. That's critical infrastructure.
Okay.
So you might want to build,
Yeah.
for example, there's one that has been done in one part of Nairobi now. It's it's a government private partnership. These are Qataris that are investing. They are building more than 10,000 flats, 40 floor up, like 100 buildings. So it's a partnership between the government and these private investors. Same thing is happening in Rwanda. Same thing is happening in Tanzania. And now these are Arabs that are doing this
Yeah.
because we don't show up.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, we gonna show.
So it's the whole gamut of critical infrastructure. I mean, all the way to food processing. For example, we have an African American sister who just finished a 400 home estate in Ghana, and they are building a 270 home estate in Kenya. And she invested also now. She's the first one in East Africa now to set up a plant to process French fries that is exported in the middle to the Middle East, Europe, and to the continent.
French fries.
French fries. That's billions of dollars.
That's interesting. That's interesting.
Yep.
So
I'm glad. I'm
those
glad
are
I
the
got
type of
you to
things that we are
expound.
looking at. We call critical infrastructure.
I'm glad I got you to expound on that because what I meant by infrastructure was a lot more sophisticated than that. But that here's the thing about it. I see an opportunity in that. Uh, I see an opportunity in both of you for us uh, because honestly, that's that's more cost effective than to go over there and build a grand resort. If you go over there, because all you're doing is putting up walls. So I think that's we need to talk more about that. Go ahead, Solomon. Again, I apologize for interrupting. I thought you
It's
were
all.
water treatment plants and stuff like that.
Yep. It's all good. I don't have a developer's experience, so it's good that I ask him these questions and you understand exactly what he's saying, and the audience can catch it from from your expertise. Mr. Obi, another part of what I want to understand is when we look at the people in Africa, we even see that most Africans come here and they have no interest of doing something in Africa, like businesses or even owning real estate in Africa. What do you think is the main reason why that's happening?
Well, um, truth be told, most Africans who immigrate out of Africa, the vast majority of Africans who immigrate out of Africa, they migrate away from poverty, right? So the mindset that they left the continent with, that mindset of poverty that they left the continent with, in as much as they acquire a lot of some wealth in America or in UK, whenever they think about Africa, they're thinking about that mindset of poverty that they left in Africa. That is what they think Africa is, and that is what they think nothing works, because when they were there before they left, nothing was working for them,
Correct.
right? So they left with that mindset. And when you talk about Africa, my own family, they are like that as well. They would, oh, nothing works. But now, until when someone like myself start pointing out to them that the Arabs, the Indians, the Chinese, the Europeans who are successful there, they are not even from the continent.
Correct.
Right.
And one other thing we have to realize is most Africans, when they immigrate from their country to the West, to United States or Europe or Asia, most of them have never set foot in another African country, so they don't even know what it's like in other African countries
That's true.
Yeah.
until you have a situation where now they are either they are forced to go to other African countries, or they come from the diaspora and they are going for vacation, then their eyes open. For example, one of the largest investors in Uganda right now, in the billions, is Eritreans who left America.
Hmm.
They didn't go back to Eritrea. They went back to Uganda. They are opening supermarkets. They are building real estate. They are building apartments, because it's come to the point where they realize that investing anywhere in Africa is development for the continent. It does not matter where you were born.
Yep. Yep.
Exactly right.
Okay, I have a friend from Cameroon, lives in America for 30 years in Florida. He owns a lot of land in Cameroon. But when it was time for him to invest, he go for where the market for what he was trying to invest. So he just opened a 30,000 chicken farm in Lagos, Nigeria.
Chicken farm.
He did not do it in Cameroon because the market doesn't support what he's trying to do.
Got it.
So that those are the things that we have to look at. So most Africans who don't invest back, first of all, not all of them are business minded people or people who have entrepreneurial spirit. So somebody came here from Africa and they become a doctor, doesn't necessarily, they are not a business person. They want to be a doctor,
Exactly. That's true.
Yep.
That's right.
right? Somebody is a nurse, they want to be a nurse, because to be an investor, it requires great entrepreneurial spirit.
That's exactly right. That's,
You have to have that mindset of a frontier man or a frontier woman.
that's right.
Yeah.
So this discussion that we are having here, we are having a discussion similar to those few Europeans who went and colonized other parts of the world. Then their kinfolk came and benefited from it. It takes very few. It takes a few, not a whole lot,
It does. It does.
Yep. Yep.
to make a change.
It does. It does.
10 African Americans can actually go into Africa and change the direction by competing directly with Asians and Arabs and Chinese.
That's
Because
exactly
one,
right.
let me put a
Right.
point on the table.
And that's the main. Well, I know you've already heard this, Obi, but that's the main aspect and attribute of the REIT. Our goal was to coordinate uh, the funding in the United States to obviously coalesce us, right? To build the infrastructure in our own country between us, right? But also invest in Africa and other continents. Let me tell you something. Let me tell you a little story about the Indian community. The Indian community had this story where they came over here and a family introduced them to the hospitality industry. Okay, to me, the Indian story is like any other story. It's always built on necessity. So someone had a necessity of housing. The Indians got together and said, We're going to turn this into a family thing. That family thing, this is what they've done. Because in the hospitality industry, you have to have a story or a culture to make it successful. So what they did is they took the processes they learned in the United States from the hospitality industry and they grew it. And when they became wealthy, they went back to India. So if you go over all of East Asia and even China and Hong Kong, you'll see these upscale Indian properties with the Indian culture integrated into them. So what I would like to do, Obi, is obviously develop our industry here, our REIT in the United States, but also connect with the cultures in Africa and build our uh, ethnic infrastructure over there. Example, Solomon, you being around me, you've learned a lot about hospitality. And if you look at the successful hospitality industry, there's always a culture in it. For
Yeah.
example, we've discussed Amman. Amman is always in a place with a culture over it. Everywhere you go, they have a culture. I don't care if it's the Dominican, I don't care if it's Thailand, wherever it is, they integrate that local culture. We'd like to do that in Africa. So that's another reason I wanted to have you on to tell you the magnitude of our vision and dream over the next 5 years.
Yes, I agree with that because there are some high-end hotels in East Africa, Kenya specifically, that rank 5 star, but they are not Western owned like Hilton, or but they are ranked 5 star,
Yes.
and those are hotels, high-end hotels that are built within around the culture, the culture there.
Exactly
So
right.
you have them there. You have them in Rwanda. You have them in Uganda that are built around the culture. You get into the hotel. It's high end, super high end, but the atmosphere is actually African.
And
So
even
it's elevating the African culture
that's right.
at the same level where Europeans might think or Asians might think they are.
That's right. That's it. So let me give you an example. What's happening right now, again, excuse me, Solomon. What's happening right now is even the hotel group's chefs, whenever they, because a lot of these resorts come with a chef. Whenever they go to these countries like Rwanda, or I love the way y'all say Tanzania, man. I love it. That's the coolest thing I've ever heard. Whenever they come there, obviously they bring familiar foods, right? But they integrate the culture in. And so that's something that and I can sell to our flags. So we can say to the flag, hey, we got a guy working over there, and whatever part of the world you're talking about, Obi, you can say, well, they want to work with you guys, Juan, and they want to, for a long term lease, they want to give you guys 300 acres, okay? And we'll say, well, man, we love that. For a long term lease, we'll come in. What Solomon and I would do is would be talk to the. Um, we have two major developers or groups. One is the fifth largest development group in the world, hotel group in the world. The other one is the third. So we can tell them we have a property there that they want to work with us on. We're over there, brother. But we have to have something already structured where they're talking to us. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. So um, I am very interested in coming over there. Uh, you know, so you and I are definitely gonna have discussion beyond this, but that's our take on coming over to Africa. Of course, we want to build the smaller hotels as well, and that's really not going to take much. But that's a relationship that you establish alongside the government, because the government says China has a construction project, right? And then China says, well, we're going to need labor. So the government says, one, we need 10 hotels. That's all they need to tell us, Obi. Once they
Hmm.
tell us that, we locked in. We bring in the flag and start building hotels. That's
Yeah.
easy. That's 12 million apiece. But when you're talking to about the resorts we're discussing, now you're talking about a $500 million endeavor to a $1.3 billion endeavor. Even with the if they gave us them. So,
Yeah.
anything else you have, Solomon, to answer this gentleman?
Now that's good conversation. So unless you have any development question, Mr. Reed, I want to talk now about our people because we've talked so much about business, but we need to talk about the people being involved, the mindset. How do we heal our people from for the years and years of all the trauma and all that? Because
No,
we can't move forward.
this is where we're gonna let Obi loose. This is where we had a
Now,
good discussion on my line. Obi, let's talk about the mindset, bro. You go first.
yeah.
How do
So
we?
are we talking about our people, continental Africans, or African diaspora Africans, or both?
Bro,
Oh,
okay. This is what we're gonna do. You talk about yeah. I'm gonna let you have the floor, both of them, and then I'll interject.
Yeah. Um, as it stands, there is a huge interest in collaboration between continental Africans and diaspora Africans. And then again, when I say huge interest, I don't mean by the numbers. Huge interest by the number, by the few that are committed. And like I mentioned before, we have to focus on the few that are committed because the few that are committed, they are the trendsetters and they are the frontier men and women that will make the change that we need. But when we start hoping that the vast majority of black folk in the continent and in the diaspora will ever come together to build some sort of global African commonwealth, that will never happen
No,
if we are banging our hope on
that's
the
right.
masses of our people.
That's right.
So there is a huge interest amongst the few in the continent and in the diaspora. So one of the things that I would say on this is for us to be expert enough to seek out that those few who have that huge interest and who also have that access to minimal capital. That is why a community REIT like what is being explained here works well, not just for the African diasporans coming together and pooling from their own resources to invest in the continent, but also uh, building a financial collaborative economics with continental Africans as part of the project. Because every person within the project have value, right up to the
That's right.
janitor,
That's right.
right? They have value.
That's
So if you
exactly
have an African brother who has the expertise in working in hospitality or in real estate or in construction. It depends on how you structure that partnership with them. It might not even be a salary partnership. It may be a partnership that they come in as a partner in the company, depending on what you structure.
yes.
Now you will get more people who are qualified on the other end who don't have the access to finance, but they have access to intellectual capital.
Mm.
Likewise, the brothers and the sisters in the diaspora, they might not have the intellectual capital to do international business or to become international investors, but they can earn passive income by playing a part using their access to minimal
I
capital.
love it.
So the community REIT in America and the intellectual capacity in Africa, that already solve that problem.
I love it. I love it. I almost peed on myself, man. I love
Yeah.
it.
see, there's particular reasons why I'm asking those questions because, like I've said, I've watched Mr. Obi on TikTok lives and this information he's put out time after time after time, and I also feel like we can't stop talking about it.
No.
We need to keep putting it out to our people, can keep getting exposed to it, and they can understand that I do have value when it comes to my people or being around my
Yep.
people, working with my people. You know.
Correct. You are very right because I've had Zoom meetings. I have one again tomorrow with a sister from Houston who intends to go and buy commercial land in Kenya, and she's having a consultation with a law firm in Nairobi tomorrow.
Okay.
And I've spoken to a lot of people. I've organized a lot of Zooms, but it's just less than 0.5% who have actually made
Yep.
a move.
Yep.
So with these hundreds of people that I've spoken to and had Zoom consultation meetings with them, just a handful have actually taken the time and made the trip to Africa and acquire the property. And that's what I'm looking for. I wasn't expecting that all 120 or 130 people that I spoke with African diaspora are going to make the move. Some of them, they're very interested, but they are not in the financial place to do it.
Right.
So now we create a situation. I created a situation where now, by next year, people can buy into the projects that we already have in the ground. So which means you can have $10,000, $5,000, and buy into the project without even stepping foot in Africa, so long as there's due diligence with a law firm.
Yep.
That way, you are getting passive income out of it.
I
Because
love that, Mr. Obi. I
so
love
that is one of the things that we are focusing now. Because in order to get a larger pool of African diaspora investors, we're gonna open up some of our own projects for them to be able to invest in it.
Look, the thing about it is you're willing to. Now it's my turn, but I'm like what he's saying. Obi, look, business is business. I don't care where you are. Okay, business is business. And what you said, having the law firm to solidify everything, understand the contract. I had initially when I came online $2.5 million. People wanted to send me $2.5 million that day over. And guess what I told them? No. I said, first of all, I don't need the money. I said, I said, here's what I need you to do. I need to educate you. Okay. So for 6 months, Solomon and I went through my bag. I educated them. I brought on guests. I brought on the uh, uh, second person in hospitality in the Gensler Company, which is the largest architectural firm in the world. I brought Kelly, which you didn't get an opportunity to meet her. That's the largest black-owned construction firm in the world, not just the United States, but the world. I've been introducing them to these people. You talk about Deloitte, accounting firms, all that, just to get them comprehensive when it comes to what we're doing. Because black people move on emotion. So the first thing we have to stop, the first thing we have to do is teach them how to be measured. Okay, we got to teach them how to be measured. And everything that you just said to me would make me invest. Because why? You qualified everything that you're doing, and you said, okay, now look through the contracts and have your lawyer look at it. He can identify if this is legitimate or not. That's his job to do that. But okay, let's go to mindset. That's a really good question, Solomon. And I'm glad you asked.
Yeah.
I think there are conditions within the black community, and when I say this, Obi,
Yes.
community is community. So there are aspects of our community in Africa that exist in the United States still, and they're the same aspects that hold us down. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
one of the greatest aspects is our religion. I
Yep.
think religion keeps us psychologically bound and stuck in circular reason. What it
Correct.
actually does is, I'm not going to say any names. I'm just going to hold my hand up. It keeps us coming back to this is right.
Correct.
Okay, and until we get past this is right, we don't understand that we can think on our own. Okay, I tell Solomon this all the time. We believe that other communities created money. Okay, we really do. In our minds, we believe we created money. Something that I put on TikTok the other day, Obi, said this. Do you know how we could help the African diaspora? Let's say we trusted Africa. And let's say Africa put a bond up. Everybody on here knows what a bond is. And they say, we're going to sell bonds to rebuild um, Ghana or whatever African country. And only Africans or African diaspora have access to these bonds. Okay?
Correct.
So when they sell the bonds, what happens? The same thing Obi is talking about. The project gets an opportunity to get built. And at the same time, when these projects are built and Africa booms, what happens? The Africans over here get wealthier or more stable. The Africans in Brazil, the Africans. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Correct.
Some of us, Obi, they think this is a novel idea, but they don't look at the other communities. They don't realize that Spain was a part of a colony, that Britain was a part of a colony, that
Yep.
the United States, the Roman Empire, Germany, France, all the people that have the money have one goal and one perspective: to stay in charge, not of the world, but of your mind. Because if they have control over your mind and you believe you have to go to everything for them, then guess what? You're always waiting on them. So when I started this, Solomon will tell you what they said. Mr. Reed, where are we going to get the money? And I told them this: out of your damn pocket. Go in your pocket, pull out the money, and if enough of us do it and it's regulated correctly, nobody can say anything,
Right.
right? Black people really believe that white folks invented money. They didn't invent money, they invented access to it. And what you and I are trying to get to the masses, well, I'm going to say something you said because I say it all the time too. I'm not trying to change anybody's mind. I'm trying to identify the people whose minds have already been changed, and we're going to
Yeah.
use it.
Yep.
Okay. But think about, what do you think about that? Since I'm glad I said it, what do you think about that bond idea, Obi? What do you think about that?
As a matter of fact, it's good you brought that topic up because we were in the process of building the bond idea as well, using a technological platform. So we wanted to create a situation where a platform where African diasporans can buy any amount of share or any amount of share in our operations in Africa, like a bond. We are selling the bonds to them, through crypto or whatever. It was actually a platform that we intended to do that because we were looking at targeting certain industries. For instance, let me take one industry. The value added for garlic around the world is almost $80 billion, and that market is controlled by the Asians. So if we can build a platform where we can take 25% or 30% or 40% of that global market, so that gives us an edge because we have the human resources and natural resources to do that.
Exactly.
But now our human and natural resources is being exploited. So the bond system that you just explained, I think it's a very effective way of doing it. For instance, if you have, say you wanted to build a project where it's a housing estate or a resort or a few hotels. The government tells us, tell you guys, okay, we want 10 hotels, and these are the areas where the hotels are should be located, the provinces, because they give you a data of the number of tourism that happens in that part of the country
Okay.
or that region of Africa.
Due
Now,
diligence.
once you have that data from the government, because the government will provide that data, the
Mhm.
tourism data, the government will provide the housing shortage data. Once you get that data now, then you have the minimal capital to invest. Either the banks in Kenya or in East Africa or even some of the Emirati banks like Saudi Arabia, Oman, or Dubai, they will underwrite projects from an American company faster than an African
Of
company.
course. Of
Yeah.
course. Got
So you coming from Houston as an American investment group, and you have the green light from the government of Kenya. Now, a Qatari or Emirati finance company might want to be a partner with this American company, and they will underwrite the
So not
finances
only
for
am I
that.
helping my company, I'm helping Africa too. Not just by building a hotel, but building a bridge with relationships.
Yes.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. So we are looking at Africa, but technically we are looking at the emerging global South economy, right? And let me give you one other thing that a lot of people they are overlooking. If um, you take a compass or a protractor, you put it in East Africa, you spin it 360 degrees, it's gonna hit the entire African continent, the entire Europe, and the entire Southeast Asia. So that is the heartbeat of the emerging global economy. That is why the United Nations in New York, it's not gonna be in New York anymore, the secretariat. I hope you guys heard that news.
No, I
United
haven't.
Nations headquarters gonna be moving from New York to Nairobi.
Nice.
They have already constructed the new United Nations headquarters, global headquarters is Nairobi, Kenya. That is why all those banks from around the world, including Bank of America, Citibank,
Yep,
they are moving into Nairobi
yep. I know that.
because
Yeah,
the future of global technological innovation
it's Africa.
is in Africa,
Right.
human resources and natural resources.
That's right.
So most of those big conglomerates now are moving there and headquartering there. You look like
Imagine.
what Microsoft is trying to do in Kenya,
Yep.
Yep.
putting billions of dollars to build this new tech city, tech hub. So the bond, what the using a community REIT style or selling the bonds, it's one of the best way for our people in the diaspora to participate in it. Because once you initiate the project and they see the project, then it's going to happen. For example, the African American sister will build 400 homes in community in Ghana. Beautiful community. It looks like sugar land in Houston.
Okay.
And before she could even build the first 10 homes, right? 300 were already sold. And who were buying it? African, African immigrants in the United States, in the UK, and African Americans. And those amongst in the continent who have money. That's they want to live in those communities. So if you say you go to Nairobi now and you have a permit to build 200 homes in a development with a clinic and school, elementary school, all those things. By the time you construct the first 5, you have sold all of them. That's how high the interest is right now
So
in Africa,
you could go
not
there.
just from Africans, but African diaspora as well.
So let me separate this thing because I need to walk away with something. You can go there and you can build an entire community, like school, hospital, because like in the United States, we have whole. They call them subdivisions, but they're really whole communities.
Yes,
You can go there and do that.
yes. That is why the Qataris, the Chinese, the Indians are that's the game now because if they control 50% of the real estate in Africa, they control the continent.
Right. That's
Yep.
exactly right.
Yep.
That's exactly right.
But but what people fail to understand is this: the entire Chinese investment in the entire continent of Africa, it's somewhere around 60 billion US dollars a year.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's not a lot of money considering the size of the continent.
Yeah, a year. Yeah.
So yeah, per year in, year out. So take a situation where just African American GDP is almost 1 point something trillion dollars. So
Yeah.
imagine if African Americans, a small group out of that $1 trillion GDP, invest only 20% of that in Africa, the African American investment in Africa would dwarf that of the Chinese.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
The Chinese will not be able to compete with the African Americans if only 20% of African American GDP is invested in critical
Yeah.
infrastructure.
It's not
So
about
African Americans now will become, within 10 years, the richest demographic in America because now they will control 25 to 30 or 40% of African critical infrastructure. So
well.
I would rather an African American become the billionaire than an Arab or a Chinese or an Indian.
Let me say this. Let me tell you what I do have. And Solomon don't even know this. I have a relationship with 2 of the sovereign families. Okay. Uh, so there's a Qatari. A good friend of mine is the He's a sovereign fund manager, two of them. And one is in China and the other was in Qatar. I can pretty much do whatever I want to do. And actually, one of the projects I'm going to, again, Solomon don't even know this. I was going to integrate it into one of our huge projects. Um, so I'm interested in that. I'm interested in helping some other people. But this is what concerns our group. Because everything that I have and I'm connected to is connected to Community REIT. I'm not going to circumvent them. I'm concerned that the other side doesn't have the ability to show me enough where I would introduce them to this fund, or we wouldn't have the leverage with them. It's unfortunate, but Obi, you and I do business based on who we know mutually.
Correct.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
So there's always and I try to teach young men like Solomon is why we need you. You understand?
Yeah.
So if I take my people over there, the Africans, because I don't know them. I mean,
Yes.
I hadn't spent the time to know them. You and I talked about that before. I haven't spent the time to know them. They can say, well, not my people, because they work with me. The African can say, well, what do we need you for? We're going to give them the land. They're going to do what we want to do. They're going to hire people, you know. So for us, I would like to get to know somebody so that I can say, hey, look, and I don't mind, Solomon will tell you this, I'll prove whatever they want me to prove.
Mm-hmm.
I'll even bring the people down or put them on a video and say, look, let's talk to these people.
Yeah.
That's how I always do things. I prove stuff. Because you got to prove who you are. I'm interested in that, but I got to be talking to somebody that you say, oh, hey, Juan, if you get to know this guy, you can trust him. Y'all get to know each other before y'all even talk about any business. He can, I'm willing to come wherever. Doesn't matter. But I'm just giving you access to the level of people that I know. But in any business you do, if you don't have a deal, and if you're not the person walking the dog gonna walk you.
Correct.
Yeah.
I've done this.
Correct. I mean, it's. I think this is also a relevant stuff to bring up. So while I was in Kenya in February, um, there was one minister of government who came to me and decided to take me to one of the largest sugar manufacturing companies in Africa.
Then go to.
That's Sony. I mean, this company has been in existence since the colonial times, since the
Oh,
60s.
yeah.
So, and I had a meeting with the director, and the directors of those companies, such large companies, they are appointed by the president of the republic, and because these are state-owned corporations. So, as we sit here and be talking right now, there is a state-owned corporation which is the largest sugar manufacturing in the continent
Mm-hmm.
that is up for sale, privatization.
Mm.
We're talking billions of dollars at play.
Okay.
And when I started that meeting, they gave me the go ahead if I can talk to African diasporans, African Americans, because if African Americans take over this, acquire this company,
Yeah.
Yeah.
this company will still be in black hands.
Yes.
The Indians are interested. Some English people are interested. Some Germans are interested. Even the Japanese are interested. So these are the levels of things that can be done. Like, let me go back to your point. I think you made a very important point. So before we even get to the point where we are engaging, or your community really want to engage in East Africa or in Africa, Kenya to be specific, and have a partnership uh, 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 MOU,
Yes.
a partnership MOU with Impact. Now we're gonna be organizing meetings beginning from Washington D.C. all the way to Nairobi.
Mm-hmm.
So we will be meeting the Kenyan ambassador and the commercial attaché that represents the government. And we're already going to have a situation where we have people on the ground that can line up a meeting with the Minister of Trade of the Republic.
Got it.
So once you have a meeting in Washington, D.C., the next step is you have a prospective delegation flying to Africa because that is how it works, not on Zoom. There will be a prospective delegation flying to Nairobi. Once we've gotten that Nairobi roundtable, we have the Washington D.C. roundtable, or we can cut through that. We get straight to the Nairobi roundtable. We have the Nairobi roundtable. Now you'll be leaving the Nairobi roundtable now after a 2 week visit with the government with tangibles, data, the things that you need, and green lighting or what are the obstacles, the bureaucratic red tape. Because not only we're going to be at that roundtable, but we're going to have the law firms who are going to be backing you if you want to do that investment sitting on that
Mr.
roundtable
Rick,
as well.
I hate to cut you off, but this is a deeper conversation. We're getting into the part of the conversation that everybody don't need to hear. So I think we're gonna cut off right here. Even Solomon shaking his head. So
I,
me and you gonna have this conversation. Me, you, and Solomon gonna have this conversation. I like where it's going because you're giving us direction, and we want people to have to pay you to get that. So tell our people where they can see you at, because you're gonna be
yeah,
on here again too. Tell our people where they can see you at, and then we're gonna set up a meeting where we can have this deep dive conversation.
Yeah, currently I'm winding down on social media, but one of the platforms that I will be keeping while I'm permanently headquartered in the continent in Kenya will be uh, Global African Commonwealth Media. That is on YouTube. Global African Commonwealth Media
Okay.
at Apostle Obi, and also on Instagram, Impact Africa.
Okay. Right.
That's Impact Africa, MPAAC. That stands for Middle Passage Atlantic Africa Company.
Got it.
So on Instagram as well. Then, of course, my Facebook is just my name at Apostle Obi. And hopefully, God willing, the website and all those things will be coming up for the cooperative and also for Impact when I'm there, impact.com when I'm there. But currently, they can communicate with me. They can see some of the things that we are doing on the ground on the Global African Commonwealth channel media on YouTube, or you just type my name. And TikTok, of course, I'm not going to have access to it beginning next year, you know, any longer because it will be moved to an American-based company, and I will be in the continent.
Got it.
got you,
Yeah.
Hey,
got you.
Solomon, you can close us out, man.
Hey, Mr. Reed, I just want to go back to what you said when we started this podcast, that we're going to have so much information put out. And we've been on for an hour, 13 minutes, and it's
Yeah.
so much. And we just want to let the viewers know it's so much coming. You never know who's going to pop up.
That's
You
right.
never know what you're going to tune in and learn. Now, I'm taking so much away from this conversation. And I really hope that in the future, Mr. Obi, we can have you again so we can talk about more of this stuff. Like you've put out your information. Did you put out your TikTok as well, or you're gonna let that go?
Yeah, my TikTok as well. I mean, I will be in TikTok until next year,
Okay,
so I may have to start a new TikTok in Africa because I'm not
Okay.
gonna be on the platform which is gonna be taking over TikTok in the United States come March next year.
Okay.
got you, got you.
Yeah,
But to all of our viewers, we thank y'all again for tuning in. Video's gonna be out Wednesday, and we're gonna be right back here on Sundays recording so we can put out information for y'all. So, Mr. Obi, thank you, Mr. Reed. Thank you for always having me on. And until next time, I appreciate all of you all for watching.
Thank
thank
you.
you,
Thank you.
thank you.